In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 30.
Woo!
We made
30.
it 30 episodes, man.
We made it as if there was a cut to make.
Hey.
There wasn't, and we're still doing it. So, I guess we made the cut. Either that or we're the guys that no one told. Like, just like that, hey, we don't want this to be embarrassing for you, so we're just not going to tell you. Which, I mean, that is plausible to be us.
All right.
I mean, do you agree or do you not?
I mean, if there was no cut to be made, then how do we make the cut?
How do we miss it? That's the real question.
Well, there's nothing to hit.
It means that there's nothing to miss either.
Everything. All right, whatever. Let's just jump right into it. So, yeah. Let's just go start with the NFL.
Yeah, so basically we just wanted to touch on what we had said last week, see if either one of us had changed our minds. I think you had picked the Patriots to win the Super Bowl, and
Nope.
I went with wait. All right, so where did you go with them?
See, I got it completely wrong.
There's only two options here. How did I get yours?
I want the Rams to win the Super Bowl because there's no way I'm picking the Patriots.
Okay, but we went with like actual predictions, like
Right.
not just our.
Right. So, actual prediction wise, then yes, the Patriots.
Okay.
Right.
And that's where we went our different ways because I went with the Rams.
Right. Even though I want the Rams to win, I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't think it's happening.
It's your classic would be happy to be wrong scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So anything else you want to cover about this game aside from the probably maybe disappointing halftime show?
I mean, I still can't believe the fact that the Patriots think that they're underdogs.
Good luck with that one.
How many Super Bowls in a row do you have to make and be considered the favorite? That's what I would like to know.
Maybe it's just they have to actually have the winning record. The more winning record from the regular season.
Oh, I mean, I guess, but I mean, they still made the bye. They still made a bye in their own conference, 5 losses.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's so unconventional that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to think that there's something weird, like that they still think that they're the underdogs. It's like, yeah, so you guys like lost a couple more games. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. All right, so
playoffs and then the season starts there.
Yeah, so again, I guess you're right in the fact that nothing has changed for our prediction wise. So you want to just move straight along?
Yep.
All right.
I mean, there's more NFL to talk after the fact. Oh, I guess we could touch on the Pro Bowl. I mean,
were you actually paying attention to the Pro Bowl?
No, I was doing grad school homework, and the Pro Bowl just happened to be on behind the computer that I was like working on. It served as background noise.
Yeah, let's just go with I didn't even pay attention to it. It was on in my house, but I was nowhere near it.
I mean, the sun didn't even pay attention to it because all there was rain.
Yeah.
And if the sun can't pay attention, then neither can I.
I I don't know. I also kind of like stopped as soon as they released the rosters. I was like, all right, whatever.
So, I mean, it's like every guy who like made the initial roster got replaced anyway,
Yeah.
unless they were like the first time in the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
Just didn't make sense otherwise.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So.
And the fact that it was like, there's a Pro Bowl team with Dak Prescott on it. Like, okay, so we know we're rolling with the B squads.
Well, I mean, the best quarterback's never going to be in the Pro Bowl because most of the time they're in the.
Yes, but they still have 3 quarterbacks on each conference roster. You mean to tell me they couldn't do better than Dak Prescott?
No, okay. Well, was he the third at least? No, I'm joking. No, they could have done a lot better.
I mean, Trubisky and who was the other one? I mean, this sums up how much people pay attention to the Pro Bowls. I can't remember the third one.
Yeah, all right. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
All right,
Save
NBA action.
Whatever this is. Yes.
So, let's just get into a kind of recap of how midway through the season, and how teams are doing, right?
Yeah, and we'll be the first ones to say that we have not been the most up to date with NBA stuff. Hockey is way more interesting at times. So, but here we are to compensate for all of that with some NBA talk here today, and we've got more coming in future episodes too.
Right.
So be on the lookout for that.
So, I mean, I don't think we have to run down the rosters. You can see them on the screen, but like big surprise. I don't know if I call it a big surprise, but like a pretty good surprise is the Nets being right now. They're 28 and 24, so they're 6th in the East.
Yeah, a team that started out I think it was like 8 and 18. I think I saw on SportsCenter at some point in the past few days, and now they're 28 and 24. Something like so. Obviously, have shown the desire to compete. My thinking now is, though, obviously the Nets are in rebuild mode. Is what do they do going forward? Because the mindset and the approach has been to say, invest for the future and not give away assets for the now anymore. And now you have a team that's in the playoff picture. You're kind of in a tough spot.
Right, but I mean, even at the rate they're going, I think teams will pick it up towards the end of the season, and they might make it in 7th or 8th, but they might be that team that just misses it at the cusp.
Well, at this current point in time, the 7th and 8th team are occupied by the Heat and Hornets, 2 teams that have losing records.
Right.
So there is definitely a level or a difference in the caliber of teams right now. Like you have your Bucks and Raptors at the top, then you have your mid-tier of Sixers, Pacers, Celtics, and then you have a little bit of a drop-off. You get the Nets.
And then you have more of a drop-off.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So. I guess we'll save the Knick talk for later because they're my pretty big disappointment, but we'll get to them. You'll see why.
The Knicks are your disappointment? I mean, what did you expect they were going to make the playoffs?
No, but go like 10 and 30 something.
Oh, they're 10 and 40 now.
Yeah, exactly.
They like even numbers, Sean.
Oh boy! All right, well, going 10 and 40, that's more of a disappointment than I was expecting.
I mean,
we'll get to that in a little bit.
They're literally taking on the contracts of prior first-round busts.
We'll get to that in a little bit, okay?
Fine, Sean. All right. You know what? You can take the lead for all I care.
So, you have a surprise or disappointment for the West?
Yeah.
Would you mind elaborating?
I would love to, Sean, and I thank you for contributing some kind of transition material to the show. So I will say this. I'm a little disappointed in the Rockets. I get that they've had some injuries, but you mean to tell me that James Harden puts up like a stretch of games of 42-plus points per game, and they're sitting only in 5th place right now?
Right.
And, I mean, if a man is going to put the team on his back, and it's going to get noticed by every NBA and basketball outlet, you got to be better than fifth place. I'd say you have to be in the top three. So in that sense, it's a little bit of a disappointment to me. I think the Jazz, they started a little slow, so I think I'm still not sure how good of a team they are. I'm a little surprised that they're in the playoff picture. Good for them. But I want to continue to see what they're really made of, especially with LeBron James being out for as long as he's been out. And that's where my third point comes in, is that LeBron James being out for the past month. I mean, it's not like the Lakers have been playing amazing when he was in the lineup, but right now they are outside the playoff picture looking in.
Right.
Again, you can't say that they'll miss the playoffs. If they miss the playoffs with LeBron, then, I mean, like, LeBron has missed the playoffs since, like, he was in his second year in the league.
Right.
But that would be, I mean, that would raise some eyebrows.
I still think them barely making the playoffs would be a disappointment.
Oh, absolutely. You can't have the best player in the game and be like the 6th, 7th, or 8th seed.
Exactly. So even though he's out, like, they shouldn't be this bad.
No, of course not. I mean, especially because they've invested in the likes of Rajon Rondo, Tyson J. They've invested in veterans who are good leaders. They've invested in guys who have won championships in prior years with prior teams. They've invested in a culture that should generate a winning team, enough so to make the playoffs and at least be in the top 4 seeds. If they're not, then that's a disappointment, because they literally built a roster where it's championship or bust.
Right. So, yeah, I agree with you in those points. They're a pretty disappointment. I mean, that covers, like, I don't know. I think the Jazz are kind of going to stay around there, though, as far as, like, your surprise goes.
I think it's one of those factors that fluctuates a little. I have no idea where the Timberwolves stand. They obviously got rid of Butler a while ago. If they're like somewhere on the cusp, I could see where a team like the Timberwolves could sneak into like the 8th seed. The Clippers, if they keep up what they're doing, move to the 7th seed. And if the Jazz like have like a 5-game losing streak towards the end, fall out.
Right. Okay. I can see your point.
I think there's a little bit of movement. The Spurs are the 6th seed. They didn't make the playoffs last year. And I get that they have DeRozan, they have Aldridge. They still have Popovich leading the charge. The Spurs aren't going to make the top 4 seeds, but they're also a team that it could move around a little bit. You never know.
Right.
But I think that outside of the Blazers, your top 4 of the 5 teams are pretty like set in stone of like who's going to be in, like, Warriors, Nuggets, Thunder, and Rockets. They're all going to finish somewhere in the top 4 is my prediction. I'd put the Blazers probably at a 5, just because that's kind of where they've peaked in the past.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'd need to see the Rockets perform around Harden.
Right.
In order for that to actually happen.
Right. And you need to see Chris Paul come back. You need to see Clint Capella come back. You need to see a healthy team.
Right. Because as much as I dislike this game for being so like one man focused, there's so many like really good players in the league that that's becoming less of the case, I guess.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Because it used to be where like, oh, the team, like LeBron carries his entire team to the playoffs. It was him and the rest of the Cavaliers, basically. Take him out of the Cavaliers, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he moved to the Heat, where he had 2 others that weren't as good as him, but still pretty dang good.
Yeah, exactly.
But so like, you're coming on a point in this game where they're finally being like a team game instead of this one guy can score 70 points and win the game for his team.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. So you want to talk? I think we've put off the Knicks for enough time now.
Yes, I mean, in what sense of a sports talk show would we be if we did not start a show, or at least in the top half hour of a show, mention the Knicks? Any good podcast, you have to talk about the Knicks. So this happened today. late this afternoon, we had a trade and kind of a major trade that may end up not being a major trade because in today's NBA, you get the buyouts. Teams don't always feel the need to stick with the players that they acquire in trades, but still a significant deal.
I mean, I think the inclusion of the picks makes it more significant because it's not like you can buy the pick back, right?
Right.
Buying out a player is a lot different than like guaranteeing a first round pick. It's like the only important pick in the NBA draft. Like, who cares about your second round pick, really?
Right. Well, I mean, these are first round picks that got traded to the Knicks, which is big for them because
they're 10-40 and they're rebuilding.
Well, no, I was going to say because the Knicks don't normally hold on to first round picks. They normally, in the past, they've traded for guys with those picks, much like the Nets had in the past decade. But the big thing is they got the Knicks after like years of rumors about Porzingis. Was he like the franchise player to build around, or was he a guy that they would attach? And a lot of the rumors circulated in the Phil Jackson era when he was the president and GM. But Phil Jackson obviously being gone, so I think that rumor was kind of put to bed for a while.
Right.
Now, out of nowhere, you kind of like, well, Porzingis now gets shipped off. Your franchise player gets shipped over to the Mavericks along with a resurgent Tim Hardaway Jr. because they had traded him a couple years ago to Atlanta and kind of like Atlanta didn't use him right. He ended up, being a bench player and went signed back with the Knicks again.
Right.
And Courtney Lee, who's kind of jumped all over the league. So they all go to the Mavericks. And I don't see any of them really getting bought out because they contribute athleticism, three-point shooting, and a high post ability with an aging Dirk Nowitzki that is missing.
Right.
So I think they all stay on the roster. But Wesley Matthews, Dennis Smith Jr., who's only in his second year at NC State, and DeAndre Jordan all get traded along with 2 first-round picks to the Knicks.
One's protected.
Yes, one's protected, one's not protected. But if you're okay with moving the sooner unprotected pick if you're the Mavericks because of the haul that you're getting back.
Right.
That draft pick is less likely to be high up on the draft board if what you're doing plays out the way you want it to. So, I mean, if you're the Knicks, yeah, you stockpile picks because you have to. I think there's a very likely chance I read that DeAndre Jordan and Wesley Matthews are probably going to end up getting bought out of their contracts.
I could see that.
Dennis Smith Jr. has shown potential, but Doncic, who was a rookie for Dallas, just like there was no way that those two could share the court because they both demanded the ball and demanded the opportunity to be facilitating. So that just wasn't going to work. So they got rid of Dennis Smith Jr. I think that's a good piece for the Knicks to build around. Ideally, it would have been a good start to like building a solid starting lineup if they were able to get Dennis Smith without moving a guy like Porzingis. But
yeah. But hey, it's happened, and they got 2 picks, so I don't think it's too like. It's not really going to do anything for them in the short term because, let's face it, they have nowhere to go in the short term. But It's a pick that's 2 years out at this point. And
yes, but it's also a thing where it doesn't create free agent appeal.
Right. Yeah, but
if you want to recruit guys to play for the Knicks this summer, this wasn't the move that got it done.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're actually finally buying into a rebuild, this shows it.
Yeah.
And
like I said, they've been taking on the contracts of guys who were drafted in the past 5 years in the first round who busted or got that bust label. So I think it's pretty evident, not so much that they were tanking, but that this was a rebuild and like they had nothing to lose. So kudos to them. They've kind of they got everyone in the organization, at least in the front office, to buy into whatever that is. and to be on the same page. We'll see how this works out in 4 or 5 years, but
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can't say it
to
yet.
be fair, if that like, to be fair, like it could really only take like if they draft like with that pick in 2 years, the rookies can at least make the team entertaining to watch again. When you get
Right.
younger, you get more fun to watch. So there's something like that, but that's going to take a while because they need the picks or the college free agents, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I don't necessarily think it's going to take 5 years for the team to be interesting again. Give it like 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I'm also kind of incorporating the, like, if we see where these picks end up going.
right, okay, yeah, that's fair. All right, anything else you want to say about the trade?
I mean, on paper is a blockbuster. We'll see how like it actually ends up going down.
All right, so then we're on to hockey. So the All-Star break just finished, right? So we had the 4 divisions compete, and Metro versus Atlantic, the Metro won. Central versus the Pacific, Central won. So the Pacific was literally done in their home of San Jose, and like the game was basically over after the first 10 minutes they played.
Mm-hmm.
And then Metro played the Central for the third period, basically, and the Metro won.
Yep,
Did you get to watch any of the game?
I did. I got to watch the second period of the quarterfinal, and I watched the final game, the championship game.
Okay, yeah. So
Honestly, I was thinking Letang was front runner for MVP.
that's never how it's gonna work, though.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out in a second, Sean.
But I mean, I just don't think Letang is a star. Like, if you said like, because I don't think it actually matters how you perform in the All-Star game to become MVP. You just need to be star enough.
Mm-hmm.
So like, even if Letang got the best stats, I don't think he's like the MVP of like MVP candidate wise because it's just how people are. But I mean, I do agree he did really well and probably should have been considered.
Okay. All right.
All right, so while we're talking about that, let's just go straight to it.
You got it.
So,
Let's do it.
so there were 2 candidates from the Metro and 2 from the Central. You want to go through them?
Yeah, so basically it was like this. You know, you can't have guys from the losing semifinal teams as your candidates. It's kind of like the Super Bowl MVP. It's kind of like, well, it's not going to be a guy from the wild card round who didn't make it. Your candidates are on both sides of the championship game.
Right.
So you had Crosby. He had 4 goals, 4 assists, and 8 points in the tournament. Barzal, who had 2 goals, 4 assists, and 6 points. And I think his 2 goals came in the championship game, and his 4 assists came in the first game. I'm not.
I think so. It's close to that at least.
Landeskog had 4 goals, 3 assists, and 7 points. And O'Reilly had 2 goals, 5 assists, and 7 points.
All right.
Now, on paper, your Central guys, on average, have the better, or like individually have the better stats. Like Barzal looks a little weaker than the Central guys, but at the same time, they didn't win, so you kind of have to take that into consideration too.
All right.
So,
I mean, if we go back, right? I think like the Central scored 15 goals, and the Metro scored 17 goals throughout the tournament. So it's pretty close in like who they could have gave the MVP votes to, because a bunch of guys had so many points. Scoring was all over the place. And I mean, if you're just taking stats, you have to vote for the guy with the most stats on the winning team. But if you want to like go by, because again, I don't think like it's an all-star game. Like, who's actually trying? So how do you pick an MVP based on performance?
Right. Well, I mean, but it's an offensive tournament.
Yeah, but it's also but I'm just saying like nobody on that court on the ice was like trying their hardest or anything. And
I mean, I'll say defensively not, but like they all try to break out their best stick handling and their
right,
and
they were having fun with
shots. Yeah, exactly.
it. Yeah, so I mean,
In that respect, they try, but like they try to deliver a show. They don't try to deliver like
yeah,
the most intense atmosphere.
yeah. So in that respect, though, like I don't see the actual MVP coming from the Central.
Okay,
Just because
you think a little too boring for you, not as much flash appeal.
I mean, if I were to vote, I probably would have chosen like Landeskog because I think his goals were pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't see like people voting a losing team's player as the MVP.
Well, let's get into how it actually went down then, because I think the people agree with you.
Okay.
I think the people may have agreed with you, Sean.
Okay, so yes, they did.
Sean's a smart fella.
I mean, again, I would have like Landeskog's goals were pretty cool, so I would say voting for him's okay. But he lost, and then there was one guy who had more points than him still on the winning team. So
yeah,
looky, almost 50% of the votes.
Yep, almost 50% of the votes go to the captain, Sid Crosby. I mean, he just put up exactly what you'd expect Crosby to put up in an All-Star game.
Right. Yeah, but all in all, like the entire event was like really fun, and I think it like displayed the game, and how they had the women's team players come in for the skills comp was pretty cool. Like it exposes them, and that's awesome. I think it did its job.
It promoted their brand too.
Yeah.
Obviously, a very nice touch.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad for the season to keep going, right? So, because I mean, we're getting down to it. We're in the last half of the season now, so we'll probably do like a mid-season recap for them soon.
Yeah, trade deadline coming up soon.
Right, so look forward to that.
I definitely will.
Anything else you want to cover for hockey?
Not pertaining to All-Star Weekend, I don't think.
All right, so let's move off of hockey then. What are we on? Oh, for the first time, the show hits college basketball.
Yeah, it's amateur hour.
Hey, I mean, to be fair, we're getting towards March Madness, so it's about time to start looking at the rankings and all that, right? So, without further ado, let's jump into it. So,
right, you got it.
Yeah, so we have the top 25 on the screen, or top 16 right now on the screen, actually.
Did I leave it at 16? I meant to say 25. It's the top 16 of 25.
Yeah.
I have multiple slides.
Yes. So you want to touch on anything from here?
Yeah, so, I mean, just if you're a traditional college basketball fan, you watch most years, if not every year, you're very unfamiliar with the fact that Tennessee is on top of the college basketball world. I think they've been solid in past years, like 3 seed, maybe a 2 seed every now and then. But this year's different, and I think it feels a little weird because they don't exactly have players that like the household name, the highly recruited superstars that will go into the NBA, and like
right.
I think it's more of like a solid team kind of job, and I think props to them. They've clearly taken over the top spot and at an 18-1 record. That quite a statement considering there are other teams from power conferences it's debatable whether they should be number one or not. You get a defensive-minded school like Virginia in there. Michigan's 19-1. You got some lesser-known names. Names like, if I'm thinking traditional college basketball fan, I'm not thinking that Nevada's in the top 25. I'm not thinking that Texas Tech or Houston is in the top 25. I'd say not even Virginia Tech. I wouldn't think that they're in the top 25 most years.
But I think Virginia Tech is probably like the most cusp team in that list to be like. If I was looking at Virginia Tech, I might not think they'd be in the top 25, but I think they'd be close to it. In a lot of cases, we'd seen them close to it.
I think traditionally, come March Madness time, you'd see Virginia Tech somewhere in the 7 through 10 seed on a bracket.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, kudos to them. They're having a better year than they've had in past. They've got Buzz Williams as a coach now. So, they've clearly upgraded from what they had in the past. But, I mean, there's a little bit of a surprise factor to college basketball this year, and I think that should not go unnoticed.
And,
even Louisville, without Rick Pitino, has climbed all the way back up into the top 15.
I mean, they have the most losses out of any team in the top 15, right?
Yeah, I mean that doesn't really matter because we're also looking at the Power 5 conferences sometimes.
Right.
Like those losses don't speak as highly as lesser losses in a mid-major conference.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, I agree that there are some surprising teams up here, but then we still have Duke. I think Kentucky's it's still there. UNC is still in the top 10. You have a lot of common names still there.
Exactly. Right, and you got Kansas right on the outside of the top 10. You got your Villanova.
Mm-hmm.
There's powerhouses all over the place. Michigan State. Like you said, I mean, I don't consider Gonzaga a powerhouse, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But because I have a whole rant on Gonzaga. But,
all right, I mean, we can get into Gonzaga now. Let's hit the bottom part of this.
All right, yeah.
So you can see the last 25 on the screen, the 17 to 25. So, yep. I mean, goes all the way from Purdue to Florida State. Noticeably, Gonzaga's missing. But, again,
we have time for that.
Yeah, again, I don't think that this is completely surprising.
Yes, but it's also not exactly traditional. The University of Buffalo in the top 20. You don't think
yeah, that's not how normal.
Having a basketball team. And then you've got a bunch of football schools that have put together better college basketball years this year.
Mm-hmm.
Say LSU traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Mississippi State, more of a football school.
Yep.
Florida State. I mean, Florida State has kind of teetered in and out of relevance with the top 25 in the past few years, but I still think football first with Florida State. Maryland, I mean, again, kind of teeters back and forth.
Right.
You don't exactly know just yet where those teams
You got a couple of football schools that receive top 25 votes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty surprising.
You got your Auburn, Washington, Iowa, TCU, Nebraska. Yeah. So there's a bunch of guys. But there's also a bunch of mid-majors that received votes this year.
Yeah.
And I think this year, when mid-majors, a bunch of them start receiving votes like this, that's your sign that you guys start paying attention, because if these guys, fall in their own tournaments, that speaks to strength of competition. It speaks to sleepers in the March Madness tournament. And so teams like Wofford, who's actually in the same conference and holds the same record as my alma mater, UNCG, at 19-3. Hofstra, which is another one of the schools I went to, is at 19-3 as well, sitting at the top of their conference, and they got two guys averaging 25 and I think 17 points per game, then two more averaging 9+ points a game.
Right.
with no center at the same, like their tallest guy is 6'10". So like I think that speaks to skill is when you have a visible lack of height and still have those kind of advantages. Davidson, teams like this again, like Buffalo, they're in the top 25 or they're sneaking around it. That's a sign that you gotta watch out for these teams come tournament time.
Right. All right. So, I mean, now that we've covered who's in the top 25, let's cover what you want to talk about.
I mean, it's not so much what I wanted to talk about as much as I really hate that other people talk about them. So, this is my Gonzaga rant. Gonzaga, they're in the top 25 seemingly every year. Come tournament time, you'll see, X amount of so-called experts say, this is Gonzaga's year. They put together a complete team. I was like, they've only lost 2 games this year. Or, okay, first of all, they play in a conference with nobody in it. Absolutely nobody. Okay, Shaan, if I were to ask you, without looking at our notes, what conference Gonzaga was in, what conference?
I have no idea.
I mean, I would think like they were like Notre Dame, where it's like they're just independent. But that's not college basketball. They don't do independent. You have to be. So they're in the West Coast Conference. Now, I have no idea where they play their championship game. It could be in the middle of the ocean for all I care. But their main competition. Let's take a look at the standings for Gonzaga's conference right now. You got Gonzaga 6-0 in conference. What a shocker that one is. I mean, because number 2 in the division is the University of San Francisco. Now, I had no idea that there was a University of San Francisco.
Well,
did you?
I knew there was a University of San Francisco. I didn't know it played D1.
But did you? Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, did you know that they sported a D1, athletic program?
No.
I didn't. And then you got BYU in third. Like, they're so bad that they couldn't even be in second. The University of San Diego, which, keep in mind, not even the best college basketball team in San Diego, because they're always trounced, in the records by like San Diego State because they're in a real conference. St. Mary's, which is where all the Australians go when they can't get recruited to a real school. Loyola Marymount. Don't care.
Loyola does make the pretty good. Like in the past few years, I think you've heard Loyola some more, but not necessarily.
But that's because there's a bunch of Loyola schools. It's not exactly Loyola.
Right. True.
And then you got Pepperdine. Don't care.
Nope.
Santa Clara, which hasn't been relevant since Steve Nash went there in the 90s.
Okay.
University of the Pacific. Again, a school with a location, I guess, would be helpful. And then the University of Portland, which is like, I don't know, if you're that close to California, why do you go to college in Portland?
Right.
So, and again, the third place team in this conference, BYU, has 9 losses.
Wait.
This is not a real conference, Shaan.
Wait, okay, what's Gonzaga's overall record?
19-2.
Okay, and what about University of San Francisco?
17-4, but they lost 2 of their games in conference.
Oh, okay.
So it's a clear drop off. I mean, it's like, look at the standings. Oh, San Francisco's only 1.5 games first. Sure. And in a week and a half, there'll be 7 games out. Chicago have played like 2 games. So I don't look. They may have a good coach at Gonzaga. They may have good players who they recruited well at Gonzaga. You can't win a national championship if you don't play good teams. I get every once in a while you have the Maui Invitational set up in the Lahaina, Hawaii, public access gym in front of ESPN and a bunch of bleachers full of locals and guys who can afford a luau shirt. And like you beat Duke in a close game or something like that, or you beat a UNC, and then after that you guys play nobody. You guys almost lost to UNCG last year, and we didn't even have a big man. Like all of our guys got in foul trouble. Nobody. Like we have one guy who scores like half of our points. And like. You guys haven't had an NBA player who's actually had true success since John Stockton. You guys have had Adam Morrison, Zach Collins, all these guys who were drafted high and then disappear from the league after like 4 years because they're not really ready for actual competition. Why? Because they played at a phony school like Gonzaga. I don't care. I don't give a crap about the Bulldogs. I don't give a crap about, you're like the best team in the Pacific Northwest. I don't care. Play 5 top 25 teams. Pitt will lose all 17 games in the ACC, but at least they played 17 games in the ACC. Like, I would bet if you played Wake Forest versus Gonzaga 10 times, Gonzaga loses at least twice.
Okay.
And Wake Forest isn't even good. It's a liberal arts school in Winston-Salem.
Okay.
I am sick of this overhyped Gonzaga is it BS. It's absolute garbage. They are nobody, and their record lies every year, and I just will not tolerate it anymore. If anyone ever says to me again, what about Gonzaga? Or it's like, look at my bracket, I put Gonzaga to win. I will tell you on the spot. I will be the friend who tells you before you submit it into your bracket pool, like, yeah, you already lost. You can't. Gonzaga will never win it. They'll make a Final Four every once in a blue moon, but they will. Look, they made the championship game last year. What happened, Sean?
They lost?
Yeah. You know why? Because they didn't play a team that was good enough to win. Or I'm sorry, good enough. They didn't play a team in the regular season last year where that team was good enough to make it to the championship game.
Right.
They play a cupcake schedule.
All right.
And that's my rant, and I'm sticking to it. Play it back in 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. It
hold
will
on.
never change.
We'll just we'll play it back when Gonzaga wins in March.
What? No, we'll play it back when they don't win in March, because they won't.
I know. Anyway, yeah, and we'll also do our brackets on the show once that comes around, so we can see how quick Gonzaga loses on your bracket. We'll have that to look forward to.
Oh, I mean, they'll make the Sweet 16, but probably, but they'll lose.
We'll see. They could just get a bad draw.
I mean, they are the bad draw.
Oh my!
They are the bad draw. Like, if you were to tell me, like, if Gonzaga was like before UMBC beat Virginia last year, if you were to tell me who was going to be the number 16 team to beat a number 1 team for the first time, I would have been like anyone who played Gonzaga. Like, they would be the weakest number 1 seed.
Yeah, but Gonzaga, like, they play, okay, now that you've said it, they play in such an easier conference that, like, when do they get number 1?
I mean, not last year, but they get number 1 a lot.
Oh, boy.
In the past 5 years, I'd say they've probably gotten at least 2.
All right. All right, well, we'll see when our brackets come out. So we'll be doing that closer to the end of the month, right? So,
yeah. Well, not the end of this month, Sean. There's, like, it's not even March yet.
Dude, this thing is coming out at, like, midnight today. So, by the time people listen to this, it'll be February 1st.
Okay, but March Madness still doesn't start for another month and a half.
Yeah, I said closer. Like, we'll start talking brackets closer to the end of the month.
I'm sorry. That's technical difficulties and a lack of motor skills on my end, because I thought you said we were filling out.
No, I know this thing doesn't start till like the second week of March.
You know, we're just gonna be a bracket podcast. We're gonna be the bracketology guy from ESPN. We're just insert like it's like this team has a dragon as their man. I think they're gonna be a number 2 seed. It would probably be the best show we've
then
ever
all
done.
the like letter math, all the letter like logos are all gonna be like 16 seeds.
We're gonna every team that's either a Spartan, a Trojan, anything that's like prehistoric is going to go in one division. You're going to have your classic corny like Syracuse Orange mascot based teams. Like you're going to have your animal section where like Gonzaga's going to be. We'll do like a dog section and a cat.
All right, I'm down. Let's do that.
All right, let's do it. That'll be the best thing we've ever done.
All right. Anything else you want to cover? Closing remark?
I have another idea actually. Just put a crap ton of teams in a hat, and we're just gonna create a bracket based off of like mystery matchups, and then like who would win hypothetically.
All right, get a hat. Put some paper in.
It's like all of a sudden it's like. University of Hawaii plays Duke, and then we put it back in the hat, and it's like, oh look, Hawaii won. And we just play out the random draw championships, and if it actually comes to fruition, hopefully, like we'll just like win.
Dude, do you know how much has to go right?
I mean, we're playing with nothing to lose, though.
True. All right.
So keep an eye out because Central Michigan University might be in the final.
If our rando bracket makes anything.
And if they have a basketball team. I'm not exactly sure.
Right. All right. Well, thank you all for watching and
listening.
See you next episode.
Yeah, we're going to have something new coming a little sooner. We're going to talk a little more NBA. Unfortunately, no Knicks. Sorry to New York City. Unless they make another deal, although they kind of like traded away like all their assets in one go.
Literally.
So we're coming back with some more fire soon.
All right. See you.
See you.